guys, you're back with Juzzy Evo X, and we're heading towards the end of March 2022. In my last video I showed you the installation of my carbon fiber APR wing, and I thought that my next mod was going to be the delivery of some carbon Ganador mirrors, but lo and behold, another part which I've been working on behind the scenes for quite a while arrived, and that was to upgrade my cluster in my Evo 10. I just wanted to show you the comparison here between the two clusters and why it is that I decided to upgrade. Now I've got an 09 Evo 10, and that is the first sort of generation of the Evo X or Evo 10. That's what this cluster is here, and as you can see, the Evo 10 cluster goes to 300. It has a rev faceplate that has a red line at 7, and you can't see it at the moment because I've removed it from the car, but the ugly thing about it is that it's got a red LCD. So I wanted to really modernize the interior and give it a color look. It just looks so old being just red. It reminded me of the days when computers first came out and they were just, the monitors were just in one color. So in 2010-ish, Mitsubishi upgraded the colors of the LCD screen so that it was actually multicolor instead of being just red. Now I had a choice of either simply buying a 2010 plus color cluster, or which was going to have the Evo tax, which would be very expensive and hard to find, particularly here in Australia. Or I could opt to purchase a color cluster for a Ralliart at a fraction of the price, so a really good price. But there are some limitations with the Ralliart cluster. So the Speedo on the Ralliart cluster only goes to 260 kilometers an hour, and the RPM is actually set at 6,500. Now both of these clusters, as you can see, go to 9, and I'm in Australia, so it's kilometers per hour, not miles per hour. But yeah, the LCD screen on the color cluster is wider, and it just looks a lot better. Now the thing that I didn't like was I didn't want to shell out all this money to have the same color cluster as any 2010 plus owner. But I also didn't want to be stuck with a cluster which was just not quite right for the Evo 10. So of course, I've got a custom tuner on the car, so therefore my RPM is far higher than 6.5. It's actually set at 7,700, I believe. And so I wanted it to redline more at 7,500. And so even on the Evo 10 cluster, the red line at 7 doesn't actually truly reflect what my tune is. So the Evo 10 cluster actually has, well, both clusters have a removable see-through plastic and black sort of bevel surround. Now on the Evo 10 cluster, you probably can see that it is clear. When I go to remove the Ralliart cluster, you can see here that it's tinted. Unfortunately, the Perspex covers are not interchangeable. A lot of people, I guess, are afraid of doing this sort of mod, and it's an opportunity, I thought, for me as a person that likes to share and do mods on the car and teach people how to get things done. Yeah, it was a perfect opportunity to do just that. All right, so what I did was I actually searched and found a company called Illumisthetic. Now, Illumisthetic is a company based out of America that does custom faceplate designs for all vehicles. If they don't have a listing for your car, you can email them, and in my situation, they asked me to remove this, take the faceplates off, take a scan of them, and email it to them. Now, I'm not actually the first person to get a Ralliart cluster faceplate made, and I'm definitely not the first one to have it for an Evo 10. In fact, on their website, they list faceplates already made. You can buy it straight off the shelf and you're good to go. But they do have an option for a little bit more money to do a customized faceplate. And I thought, if I'm going to change the faceplate, why not get one that's unique, that no one has, which is way better than what I think anyone else has. So that's exactly what I did. So a fellow from Illumisthetic called Adam wrote back to me, told me about the process. What it involved was that I made the payment up front, and then a fellow, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, called Rylan, R-Y-L-A-N, Rylan from the design team in Illumisthetic, then emailed me after my payment, and he actually said, this is quite doable. He went through all the lists that I did, and he came back with a draft design, and straight out of the park, it was exactly what I wanted. Then, as you do, you have a look at it and you think, oh, I might actually just want to make a couple of changes here and there. So he did allow me to do that, which I'm very thankful for. So basically, as I said, it just involved me removing the covers, taking the needles off, getting the faceplates and putting them onto a scanner, and then emailing it out. So I thought I'd just let you guys know that on the Illumisthetic YouTube channel, there is actually a how-to guide on how to remove the faceplates for this single faceplate layer design. So that's the 0809 model, as well as the 2010 plus model. So yeah, whether that's Ralliart or Evo, it's much the same. So basically, if you wanted to see their video now, it'll be a lot more detailed than this one. This one is simply just going to be me removing it quite quickly and then showing you the new ones that have arrived. So basically, I wanted to upgrade the faceplates to my specification, and now we'll just have a look at what actually turned up. So it took about 11 or 12 days to arrive from the United States to Australia. It came in a padded yellow envelope like that. And then inside, they put the faceplates inside. They taped a cardboard box together so that it wouldn't get bent. And I've cut it open, and here we go. So this is what arrived in the post, and I was really happy because, as you can see, it's exactly as my design was. Inside here, you've got the custom faceplates, a decal for Illumisthetic. You've got some chrome tape, which you can use to line on the inside of the bowl underneath the faceplate to help light it up even more. And then just a disclaimer sheet here that says, if you don't know what you're doing, get someone who knows what they're doing to do it. Now, I don't know what I'm doing, but I watch their videos and I feel confident with getting it. That's their email address there, sales@Illumisthetic. And that's their website there, which is again youtube.com/Illumisthetic. So basically, I just wanted to talk now through the upgrades that I've done. And I'll just place these over here in front of the Ralliart cluster. So Ralliart owners should be pretty happy to see that yes, they do have the scan of my OEM one, so they can customize it. So if you go ahead and order one, it will be based off my factory one here from Australia. So yes, it's kilometers an hour. So if you have a miles per hour one, they do have a person who does have a Ralliart with miles per hour in the States that's done that. So outside of America, if you've got kilometers per hour, you're now good to go for the Ralliart. All right, so let's have a look at what we've got here. As you can see, I'm sorry about the reflection, I'll just try and fix that up. As you can see here, I've got some differences to the OEM revs. So straight away, you'll see that the revs go to 10,000, which they do not on the Evo. I'll just put this one here. Carbon fiber background, much nicer than the plain black. I've got the capitalization and spacing of the times 1000 RPM, so no spacing and it's lowercase. And most importantly for me, I've got the red line at 7,500 RPM versus 6.5 versus 7. The key thing I wanted to point out here is that I really wanted for the needle to sort of change color as it progresses through the rev range. So they hadn't done this before, but we thought, let's give it a shot. If it doesn't work, then no problem at all. But in this case, if I hold this up here, you'll see that the center of the faceplate is clear. Now, the factory ones are clear. So on the Evo, it is, but on the Ralliart, it's actually red. And what happens is the light comes through the center here, then it disperses to the needle, and that illuminates the needle red in this case, or white in this case. So what I wanted to do was have the light come through, but yeah, as I said, change color as it goes through the revs. Now, where my thumb is right now, you'll see that it's yellow, orange, red. And the reason why it's on this side is because the pickup of light from underneath the needle, you'll see a little window there towards the top. So it lights up from the back side, and then that light filters through the needle, and that's what you see when you're driving. So in other words, in order for the needle to go from white, yellow, orange to red, so the actual needle to illuminate, you actually have to have a color on the opposite side. So yep, they went ahead, and as a part of the creation process, they made the clear, as you can see, with those colors. And also I got them to just widen the width of that little white window so that I could get some sort of a luminescent glow coming from the center. You don't necessarily have to do that though. So Rylan told me that in order to get that, you can simply just lift the needle a little bit higher from where it sits at the bottom. But yeah, I just wanted it to be all standard, but have the custom faceplate design, so I went a little bit wider. Cool, so that is the RPM faceplate, and now here is the Speedo. So as you can see, Ralliart Speedo 260, my custom one 300, and the Evo 300. So as you can see, the location of where 300 is different. So you can't just simply swap faceplates onto a cluster. You have to have the right faceplate with the cluster. They're just different, they don't work. Yeah, so again, we've got the carbon fiber background. I got the kilometers an hour capitalized. So you can see it's lowercase there, and it's lowercase on the Evo. And yeah, I really liked the idea of having it round, so it's just out of the faceplate. So I didn't really like that on the Ralliart. I preferred it to look round and complete sort of the circle. Yeah, so again, custom lettering. So I've got my license plate, and I asked Rylan to make the height of the text the same on both sides and to make it centered. Last thing, again, I wanted the light to disperse out from the center, so I got him to widen the clear see-through area in the middle there. So as you can see, the faceplate comes with all the little hole cutouts so that they sit on the cluster and they don't fall out. Regardless of that though, when you clamp this part down, you push it through all these little channels, it holds the faceplate in any case. Now, what I'll just show you here is the last part. So this is just exactly the same as what you'd see on the factory one. It's just got a carbon center. So it's just clear cut. Don't know if it might be a little bit hard to see, but it's just a clear cut out. So it'll just appear white, which is what I wanted. Want it to be nice and clean, but against the carbon fiber background. So got plenty of carbon over the car, got it in the interior, and now I've got it on the cluster, so that makes me super happy. So now we'll talk about the actual removal of the needles and what I'm going to do there. So on their website, they have a video showing that in order to remove the needle, you just have to just very slowly work it back and forth. And what I did in my case is, as I turned it, I just gently lifted it at the same time. And in my case, they all came off fairly good. I think on the Ralliart, the RPM one was slightly harder to pull up, but it came out. And so the same thing happens for the Speedo, as you can see, the needle looks exactly the same. And I'll just actually remove this Evo one now to show you underneath. They look exactly the same. And as you can see, there's a light pickup on the opposite side of the needle. So the light shines in from this area here, and then it disperses down the needle so that it illuminates. On their website, they talk about how you can, I think, sand it down and paint it to a color of your liking. But instead, what I wanted to do was keep the clean lines of the white needles. So I'll actually, the good thing is that the post that the needle sits on is the same width as the one that comes in the Evo. So as you can see there, I'm going to have the white needles on these carbon faceplates, and that needle should technically illuminate in a different color as I go through the rev range. I hope that works. Of course, as you can see, I haven't installed it yet, so I don't know if it's going to work, but worst case scenario, it will light up white at least, like factory, because there is plenty of see-through clear center section on the faceplate. All right, so when you remove the faceplates, you just simply remove the needles first. Yep, so no problems. And then after you do that, you can then see what's underneath. So this part's just a little bit hard with one hand, so there you go. So as you can see, it's a white dome underneath, and as you can imagine, that's because the white LED lights that are in here have to light up this bowl, and that in turn makes your numbers and everything on here light up because it's a white, or if not see-through, part of the faceplate that you're actually seeing a reflection from underneath. And so that's where this silver tape comes into play. So it obviously doesn't matter if it looks perfect under here because you don't see that, but what they're suggesting to me is that if I put this tape in here, the light will reflect a lot brighter off this chrome tape from their experience than it does on a white cluster. So as you can see, it's very easy to remove those. It's easier when you've got two hands, but as you can see, I've done that there with two hands. So that's what it looks like underneath the 3-piece 2010 plus cluster. Now, I haven't actually removed this Evo one. Yeah, I haven't actually removed that needle yet, but this whole faceplate comes off, and then yeah, you've basically got bowls under here, just like this one. And so yeah, if you are wanting to upgrade that red LCD for some reason, I'm not really sure why you would, but if you are wanting to, then yep, it can happen. Now, one thing I did not know about the Ralliarts is that from factory, Mitsubishi allows you to actually tow things. So you can hook up a trailer to the back of your Ralliart. If you have a look there, just in where my thumb is, you'll see a picture of a little trailer. So what they're saying there is that when you've got a trailer hooked up, I guess if you hook up one of those little cables that passes the electricity through for the brake lights, etc., then that little thing there lights up. Now on the Ralliart cluster, you'll see there that there is a hole just for that. Now, I don't actually have a bulb in there, so I'm not sure what's going on, but it might be on the Ralliart there's some sort of bulb that sits in your dash area. So yeah, on my Evo, of course, I'm not towing anything, so they just filled that through. And so as you can see, it's just got the Speedo from sort of 280 to 300 in that area anyway. Now, Rylan told me that in order for this area of the faceplate to light up, I actually have to remove this wall, and I need to remove these cylinder walls here. So I'll go about doing that with a Dremel, and so then I'll be able to put this tape around the inside, which means that these areas will be able to light up these numbers and the 9 and the 10 as well. So that's an easy thing to do. It'll just take about a minute or two with my Dremel. It's plastic, so it'll come off nice and easy. And then I'll resume to show you what it looks like. Okay guys, so I've come to my garage, and as you can see, I've got my Dremel tool here, and I've got the cluster with the parts that I need to Dremel out. So obviously I can't hold a phone whilst I do this, or I could, I'll absolutely stuff it up. So let's pray to God and fingers crossed that it ends up okay. Alright guys, so about 20 minutes later, I Dremeled the cluster using just one of these standard sanding tools. Hope that's focusing on a Dremel. And then when it got closer to the sort of cup, the bowl area of the cluster, I used one of these sort of stone rounded Dremel accessories instead. So here it is now. As you can see, I've removed the one that was there and the two cylinder walls that were there. Now, just bear in mind that you don't have to get this perfect. You just want to get it as low and kind of uniform as you can to this bowl. And it's never going to look like that. What you have to do is line this whole bowl now with that tape. Right guys, so I've got the length of tape that they gave me, and I simply just put it on top of some scrap exercise book paper, cut it to the same shape. Once I then cut it to a shape just sort of like that, the same width, I then put the paper into this bowl, and then I just sort of folded and then allowed a couple of mil excess to give me a sort of a rough idea of a template that I can use to then cut onto these strips here. So that then means that I minimize the folds. I won't be able to stop all folds, but yeah, so I can cut out the inner side and the outside, and then I'll simply place that around there. Okay, so I've just stopped here to do a recording of the first one that's been done. As you can see, it's going to light up really well. Once the LEDs are in here and the faceplate's on top, it's going to be fully lit up. It's going to look great. So yeah, it's got one strip, two strip, and then a strip in the middle to make sure that all of it. Okay, so I've got the second side done now. Exactly the same, top, bottom, and two strips on the side. So the whole bowl area on both sides is now covered with this reflective tape. It's now time to put the faceplates on. Okay, so I've now got the faceplates down, 1, 2, 3, and it's really starting to come together now, which is pretty exciting. What I noticed was that I had to make just tiny little incisions on this one and this one so that it sit flat. So it was only like a matter of 1 or 2 millimeters for the holder. Now that doesn't really matter so much because this part, when this part sits down, it keeps it in place. But because it was just a tiny little bit tight on those two corners, it was slightly bowing. So I basically just got a pair of sharp sort of needle nose scissors and made a couple of incisions there so that it sat flatter. Same thing for this one. Yeah, but it was only that one that needed it. Alright guys, so I'm now in the car and just going to show you guys how to remove the cluster from, at least in my case, the Evo 10. Now, if you start trying to pull this part out here, you'll notice that it starts pulling the radio fascia. So in order to get all of this off, you first of all have to remove that part down so that you can then pull this whole center trim off. When you do that, that then enables you to pull your radio fascia out. Now you'll see here that I've got an Android head unit, but basically you can't get this part out because there's a little ledge that sits behind the radio here. This as well until this part comes out as well, because a similar thing occurs on this side. So you've got to pull this down and then remove this part out. So I'll just cut to that. Okay, so now that that part is up and up on the dash, you can see here that there is a little recessed edge that that part holds down. So now that I've got all those supporting parts out, I'll use two hands to pull this part back towards me. Alright, so I've pulled this part back, and as you do, you'll see here on this right side, well, I guess if you're a right-hand drive, that there is a little plug to disconnect. That little plug connects to the info button. That's just there in the lower right corner. And as you pull this plastic piece towards you, just make sure that you're careful not to dislodge or break this push setting for the menu. Alright, so as you can see, I've pulled that forward, and then here on the back there's just one plug to undo. So as you can see, I could simply do that undone with one hand, and then out comes your cluster. Just gently put that up top so you don't scratch your dash, but that's what it looks like behind on an Evo 10. Should be pretty similar on other CJ models. But now I'm going to be really careful, use two hands to do the reverse. So I'm going to put that cluster in here, connect up this cable. So as you can see here, sorry for that noise. So as you can see here, the center of the gauges is really lit up, and that's just basically to allow for the needle to light up. So just firstly looking here, I can see here that there is a tiny, what would you call that? It looks like the, you know, there's a central ring that sits above where there were 4 stalks on the bowl, and it looks like the outline for that is making a slight shadow there in the text. The good news is that the light is illuminating all the way, so that chrome tape that I've used is lighting up the 280 and 300 area where I had the Dremel, and the same situation here for the 9 and the 10 where there were those 2 cylindrical walls. So yep, we can see up here on top that all the lights, I'll try and move the camera around because I'm just conscious that it may appear different when you watch it on a phone or a screen. But yeah, so as you can see, all of the lights are there, they're working. If I turn that back to off, awesome. Yep, great. So everything's appearing right. It just looks like I might just take this out and just have a second look at that central part of the top ring. I might just see if I can Dremel that off. Alright, so I've removed the faceplates and I can see now what the problem is. So basically the text sits just sort of here and here. And of course this white top part of this light reflector is just causing it to be slightly not lit up on the bottom row of the text, so the evolution, and just a slight part of the license plate that I've got there. So when I just have a look at this, you can see that there's a reflector light there, you can see the little yellow lights as it goes around. So because there's no text down the bottom, it's not casting a shadow over it. So for anyone that's considering getting something similar to mine with customized text to whatever you like, then it might be that you will need to do this mod as well. So if you don't have text there in the middle, then you won't have to worry about doing this. I'm going to take a punt, and I'm going to rely on this chrome reflective tape to still light up all the numbers. So I'm just going to do it on one side first here, put it back in and see, just to check to make sure that everything on the top part of the cluster lights up. Okay, so as you can see, I've just Dremeled down that top part there. As you can see, that's what it looks like. I'll put it side by side. So I've just Dremeled down. It's such a thin piece of plastic that you have to be super careful. As you can see, I did not scratch the chrome tape. So you have to be really careful, guys. And yeah, just apply the lightest amount of pressure if you're thinking of putting some text at the top there. So as you can see, that sort of allows for some light to go there. So I'll go and try that now, and hopefully that text is not affected. All right, just realized I hadn't done a video just showing what it looks like from the back. So for anyone that's just interested, that's what it looks like. Okay, so as you can see, that's where the LVL10 is, and I'm hoping that that's enough to allow the light to come through. So let's give that a shot. Okay, so back into the car. So it still has a reflection there on that lower part of the LVL10, so it looks like it's still not enough. Looks like it'll still have to go down. So just having a look at the rest of the gauge face, you can see there that it's well lit up. So the reflective tape is really needed to light up the whole thing, and it looks as though the part that I was dremeling off is not going to be an issue in terms of removing it. So I'll remove a bit more and let's see how we go. All right, so I'm back, and as you can see, I've dremeled it down more. So I'm probably about halfway in comparison to this side. I've dremeled it down to halfway, so just do a little bit at a time. Just go 2 mil until you get it right. Let's check it out again. All right, ready for round 2. Okay, great. So I can see here that the shadow has moved lower now, so I still have to move a little bit more, but at least I know now that I'm on the right track. So looks like another 2 mil, and we'll test again and we'll get this right. And then once I've got the right height on the right side, I know how much I'll need to remove from the left. All right, so let's have a look. I've brought the Dremel area down so that it's the same on both sides. Looks pretty good, but it's still just got another 1 mil, I think, to go. But as you can see, I'm so close. That's going to be the result. Then we just need to test the needle. Okay, so here we are. I've got it now quite far down on both sides, and I believe that that should be enough to finally get it right. Let's give it a final shot. And success. All right, great. So as you can see, it's now fully illuminated without any shade on the lower line of text. And up here, it's all uniform bright. Same thing on this side, uniform bright, 360 degrees. All of the text is lit up really nice, and I've got the color cluster. So I'm now going to proceed putting the needles on. Okay guys, so as you can see here, I've got the needles on the cluster, and I've managed to get the values set at 0. When I turn it on, now I haven't taken it for a drive yet, so I think that I'll have to calibrate the Speedo, but as you can see, the needle is lit up in white, so it's the Ralliart cluster using the Evo needles. And as I put the needle through the rev range, I'm not sure if you can see that, but the needle has changed to a different color. Now it's much easier to see to the naked eye. The phone is not doing the needle justice, but as it goes through to the red line, the needle has become a red color. Now it's not a strong color, so unfortunately that aspect of it didn't work out to be super bright, but it is noticeable. So the great thing is that it all works. So as you can see, I've got the LCD color center, I've got all the lights up here appearing, everything is lit up. Right now I've just opened my garage, so that's why it looks a little bit contrasty, but even with this glare from looking in the camera, you can see it's well lit up. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out. Of course, it looks so different. I guess if you have a 08, 09 model car, then it's going to look red. And when you get this, you just think, wow, it's like a different car. In reality, it's the same car with no power difference, etc. But just aesthetically, appearance-wise, it looks really good. And I'm sure that you're going to agree that this looks a lot better than the old red cluster. So I'll take it for a drive now and give you guys my final thoughts once I come back. Alright guys, so I'm out on the street now, just going for a drive down the road, and as you can see, I've got Torque Pro up, and if you have a look at this value over here, you can see it's at 850, 860, and if you look at the needle, that is right as well, so I'm satisfied that's right. And I'll just get my buddy to hold the phone here. Alright, so we're having a look as I'm driving along. So I'm in 4th gear, 5th gear, 60 kilometers an hour at around about 1800 RPM. So that's great. So I'm satisfied that the Speedo is working correctly.